Hey guys, giving you another angle of Castle de Nerdo. Oops, keep hands off the table because it makes it bounce. Earthquake. Yeah. This would normally be where the Gamer's Guide to Feminism video comes in my YouTube channel, but I have sunburned my eyeballs. I am not kidding. Yeah, so I can't fart around with the editing for a little bit until the burning goes away. But I did want to do a Tatas Tuesday video because it is Tuesday and we like talking about Tatas. And so I wanted to address this question that keeps cascading all over Twitter and all this stuff about the number of female playable characters in games and whether this matters and whether the sharp decrease, allegedly, from last year to this year is cause for concern, yada, yada, yada. Well, first of all, we have to look at the numbers, which the numbers game is a very, very bad mode of analysis for this, I believe. I think that quantitative analysis is the wrong way to go with this debate. I think we have to look at the quality of the characters we do have and encourage developers to take more risks when it comes to female game characters. That's my opinion. Feel free to disagree on that one. That's just my mode, because with art, it's always about what you like is always more powerful than what you don't like, right? And so talking about what we like is going to resonate with developers more than complaining yet again about another thing, because one thing a game developer knows is that gamers love to complain and people are far more likely to say about something they don't like, which means a lot of it just becomes noise. Now, if we talk about stuff we do like, the developer goes, hey, I was rewarded for that. I'm going to do more of that. So that's my explanation for why I choose to approach things in this way. Now, that doesn't mean saying when I don't agree with something. Like, no, I'm not going to Pollyanna it. You guys are going to get my honest opinion. But I'm not going to just constantly go negative and constantly go, not enough or not good enough, because that's led to this fear that developers seem to be facing when it comes to women and female characters in gaming. So, with that stated, here's the thing about the numbers from last year. The commonly held thing you might say is that there were 7 games with female playable characters featured at E3 press conferences last year. Now, just the press conferences, not the show floor. This is a misleading number, because press conferences can show games that come back the year after, and the year after that, and in the case of Mass Effect 4, possibly the year after that. And this is what's happened to a lot of these games with female playable characters, hardwired female playable characters. 2 of the games that were included in the count last year, Horizon Zero Dawn and Recore, came back again this year. Now, 2 more games that were featured last year were existing properties like Mirror's Edge and Tomb Raider, who have always been female playable characters. That doesn't mean you just say, doesn't count. It does in terms of measuring net change or net improvement. That's not as significant as the new IPs, because, you know, Lara Croft and Faith have been around since before we started having this very loud and noisy debate. Like I said, it doesn't mean they don't count. It just means that there is an element of, hi Binky, thanks Binky, these characters predated the debate. I mean, Lara Croft's been around since the 1990s, as has Jill Valentine and any number of fighting game characters, Chun-Li and so on and so forth. And that's the second part I want to talk about: female playable characters. This female playable character count didn't seem to include games that allowed you to customize your main character. Now, that would count games like Sea of Thieves that have a lot of character customization, probably showed off the most character customization of any game on the floor, and that wasn't a press conference. Games like We Happy Few, we actually don't know the gender of the protagonist yet. It could be anybody. I will go out on a limb and say it's probably male, but who knows? The point is, we don't know yet. And then, you know, fighting games like Tekken, there's women to play, there's men to play. just counting female protagonists are not an accurate way of looking at the overall picture of inclusion in women in video games. And this is the next part I want to get to. In a lot of games, the primary antagonist or your partner character is more important in terms of representation on screen than the playable character. The classic example of this is BioShock Infinite, where you see a lot more of Elizabeth on screen than Booker, because, hey, Booker's a first-person protagonist. Does anybody really care that Doom Guy is a guy? Doom is essentially a suit of armor you run around and smash things in. Things like this, and Doom is a classic example of female villain. Amazing female character in, what's her name, Olivia Pierce? I think that should count for something. So we need to start counting female antagonists, which are difficult to tell from the trailer. Other things that were left out of this analysis are the fact that the main secondary character in Gears of War 4 is Kate Diaz. And Laura Bailey was right on the stage. Woman on an Xbox press conference who was actually involved in a game, not their TV division. And that doesn't count in the female playable character analysis because the scope is too small. And this is the thing I want to caution people about. It is a metric. It is. But you shouldn't use only one metric in measuring the state of women in gaming. I would like to see, and none of this is super important because unless you're on the show floor, you really don't get a full sense of what's on offer. I mean, there were games like Bound that were at the PlayStation booth and Gravity Rush 2 that didn't make it into the press conference. Both of those are female playable characters. And there's like the female playable character and then other female characters in the game. Like, it's full of female characters. We don't know who the protagonist is of Resident Evil yet. I don't know anyway. Dishonored 2, does that count for half a point because you can switch through the two? I mean, and then like a lot of the games say, the Steep, the Ubisoft game, the snowboarding, customizable character. Does this count? I think that customizable characters should include. So this 2 number versus 7 versus, it's actually a net decrease of 3 female playable characters. That is really too small a sample, especially since we have to factor in that there's more at play here, right? There are other types of people that need to be included. A bigger concern I would have is that every single one of those female playable characters that we saw so far, I won't include Kate because her last name is Diaz, that implies she's Latina, but vocab voiced by a white actress, so it reads that way, but they're all white women. And so I don't think we should chastise, say, Watch Dogs 2 for having a black guy from Oakland as a main character. That is a viable choice as well. Other minority groups get to have a turn. And this is my big concern, is that we continue to talk about half the population as a minority group. And is there a minority representation? Yes. But if you look at the people attending E3, we have to stop thinking about women as a percentage of the general population and think about women as a percentage of the gaming population, specifically the console gaming population, not mobile. I mean, there's actually a game called Oddbirds that was put on by a group of guys from Sheridan College, and I asked them, you look at the birds and they're these archer birds, so they're like human birds. Could count as a furry. But I said, how do you plan to respond for I actually did the voice, you have no female playable characters. And they actually said, our birds don't have a gender. Boom! That doesn't include an account, but fair answer. These birds are just, genderqueer birds. They don't have a gender. Neat game, too. It's like this 4-person competitive. But it's on the stick, so it's more like archery. You actually have to like pull and hold to shoot. Fun game. I enjoyed it. But like this is the thing. One metric does not measure an incredibly diverse industry, and that's when you see professional polling done on these things. They ask multiple questions and look at an issue from multiple different measurement points of view, because one way could catch something that another measurement parameter didn't. And this is really important. So I think that if you want to be concerned about female playable characters in games, go right ahead. But I want to challenge you on the fact that a lot of the games that, I mean, is there a playable character in Madden? Not really. Is there a female playable character? Is there a playable character in FIFA? No. You know, sports games, it goes out the window because you're managing teams, right? And are we really going to worry about the gender of the character in a South Park game? There are circles with squares on the bottom. And so it's things like this that if you actually look at the number of games with a hardwired male lead, there's Days Gone, because that's, you get to be Daryl Dixon in a game from The Walking Dead. But it's not The Walking Dead. Don't want to misconstrue anything there. And Kratos, who is Kratos. And I think that they're telling a story I'm actually quite interested in. I know there's going to be a blow up about the whole women in refrigerators thing, but I like the fact that the kid's mom appeared to have been a hunter, because the knife, the hunting knife, is passing on from the mom to the kid. So, hey, there's some representation there that's pretty cool. And, you know, if you go down, I'm pretty sure the list of games with hardwired male protagonists, you could count Gears because of JD, but, you know, that's 3. There weren't that many games that were hardwired adventure games. I mean, are you going to count Crash Bandicoot? Are you going to count Spider-Man? I guess you can, but still, that's not that many when you think about it, right? Not compared to a game like, you know, For Honor, and yes, all those characters are probably male, but again, female antagonists. So which is more important? The unnamed swappable, which is an indication of objectification, when one character can be swapped out for another with no change. What's more important, that or the female big bad boss that is responsible for all the action? And before you say no, the playable character matters most, it's the most important character in the game, I'm going to challenge his thinking. Far Cry 3. Do you remember anything about the main character? Who do you remember in that game? Vas Montenegro. Because he's the one looking at you, talking about insanity. Like, that's the box art, that's the image, that's the most lasting character in that game. Michael Mando's performance in Far Cry 3. And he was not the playable character.